Unashamed, the Recovery Podcast.
Hey, Recovery fam. Welcome to another episode of the Unashamed Recovery Podcast. I'm your host, Drew.
I'm Drew.
I'm your host, Josh. That's Drew.
Josh is confused. Let's just meet today's guest.
Let's meet our next guest.
Well, hi there, Caitlyn.
Hi,
How you doing?
I'm great.
So do you care to tell everybody who you are?
I'm his daughter.
Oh, this is going to get juicy, y'all.
Ew.
So, Caitlyn, the reason you're on the show today is we're going to talk about a specific subject of where we're talking about the children of addicts who had to live through their parents' addiction. And I know through our various talks since, I decided to take the step to get clean, that we've had, some interactions as far as you telling me about some of the happenings or how it's affected you in your life today. So I think this is us breaking some of that stigma as far as because it's rarely ever talked about or heard from the child's point of view of actually how destructive addiction can be to children. So this is your time to shine, baby girl. I would love to hear, and I'd love for everybody else to kind of get a shot of or an earful of what they're doing or what happens to children of addicts. So start by introducing yourself, I guess.
Well, I'm Caitlyn. I'm 16, and we already said this, but I'm his daughter. I don't really know what else to say. Well, I live with my grandparents, and I've had to live through you and my mom going through a lot, like with your own journey, I guess.
Right.
And it has affected a lot of how I am now and like just how I am as a person, I guess. So I don't really, yeah.
So how would, and we often ask this question on the podcast is, so in your story, because this is exactly what it is, this is your story more so than it is mine. How would that first chapter look as far as what would you label the first chapter of your book as far as dealing with a parent or parents, in your case, that went through addiction or are still going through addiction?
Well, I guess I would think back to like how I felt when it first all started happening, which I mean it's been going on since I was young and I didn't really know it was going on. But I guess I would just bring up the fact that it has affected like me mentally, and I would bring up how I think and how I feel towards others because of how I saw you and my mom go through everything and how I treat other people because of it. So I don't really know like what the first chapter would be called or like what it would say. All I really know is that it would start with how I personally started looking at how the world is. If that makes sense.
It makes a ton of sense.
Um, which I am very like empathetic because of not only having to deal with like grandparents seeing how they also struggled with it
Right.
and like how they had to deal with it, but just how I had to kind of learn to understand what was going on and to be able to support you and my mom and help y'all not be like discouraged about getting better and all this other stuff that could possibly affect you and my mom. So
Well, my addiction, and I will say this, and I'll be very transparent when I say this. I know that it caused me to miss out on a ton of your life. So how did that ultimately affect you there?
Well, every time I would go somewhere, kids would be like, "Well, where's your parents? Like, where's your dad? Why do you live with your grandparents?" And I think that really like hit me when I was in elementary school because I didn't really know the answer to a lot of those questions, and not having like my father at a lot of like important things really just I think it was just really confusing at that point, and I didn't really like know how to deal with it, and I was like, I guess it was just really hard to see other people's parents be there and then just know that like, well, my dad's not coming, but it's okay, and like just having to like reassure myself that it was because like you had stuff to go through and it wasn't because of me. So
Right. But ooh, I'm about teared up a little bit on that one.
I told you were gonna
Oh, hush, girl. I mean, because it bothers me at some of the decisions that I made as far as the lifestyle I chose when I was a young parent, which is no excuse, but I was choosing the party lifestyle over actually being there for you, and that was wrong of me. I know we've talked about it numerous times, um, but to say that, um, and I know it affected you in so many ways, and I know sometimes it's a little harder to talk about it when we're in a setting like this. But I love you. You know that. You know that. And
yeah.
but I'm not gonna lie to you. Whenever I had the opportunity to be a parent, it scared the crap out of me. Yeah, I mean, you're the one who made me a daddy. You know what I mean? But it did. It scared the crap out of me, and so I knew one thing. Whenever I got scared, it was fight or flight, and I flew to drugs, alcohol, and promiscuity. We talked about the wide spectrum of how everything my thought process, and it was crazy. I didn't know it affected you that way. As far as being bullied, because we've talked about you being bullied by other kids, but due to the fact that you live with my mom and dad. But that was the best option for you at that point in time, due to the fact that my lifestyle was crazy, your mom's lifestyle was crazy. Um, and I'm glad that I've had the opportunity uh, to start to try the healing process. But so let's keep digging. Let's get those shovels out.
Oh,
I'm probably gonna end up crying at the end of this.
you're probably gonna start crying in like 10 seconds.
Huh?
So it's probably gonna be 10 seconds.
Me or you?
Yeah, you.
Thanks, I appreciate it.
You're
Thanks for
so
having so
welcome.
much faith in me, Caitlyn. But we talked about you living with my mom and dad, with Granny and Pawpaw. Uh, how you've seen me be at the house, kicked out of the
Mhm.
house, fighting with Pawpaw. You've seen me at my wildest. Matter of fact, in my relapse story, you're a big part of it. Due to the fact that you're me seeing you and me seeing you see me, in my complete moment of psychosis is what actually kind of brought me back to reality. At the fact that I was crazy. How did that affect you in that moment?
I was really, I think in the moment of it all happening, I was just really like scared because once again, like I just didn't understand because I was young and I just saw a lot of stuff happening all at once, and it was a lot to process, and I'm still processing a lot of it that happened because that's a lot to take in.
Yeah.
Seeing like a lot of fighting, a lot of just yelling what people would think was quote unquote insaneness just going on. But like I think I managed to keep myself pretty calm through it all, which is I'm very thankful for, and having Granny there, of course, to like help with that a little during the moment. During the moment, was good to be able to, at least I'm just glad that I was there to see it instead of like my brothers, because I don't know how that would affect them, and I know that
Right.
I could handle it. And so, I mean, I guess I'm glad to have been there through that because it helped me grow as a person, and I mean, obviously it made me mature a lot faster, like mentally. Um, but
Which you should, and get to enjoy a childhood.
I mean, yeah.
And you
But
should have enjoyed a childhood with us being more involved. I don't think you would have wanted me to be as involved in some of the crazy states of mine that I was in. But my life of addiction actually took me away from you due to the fact that it took me to prison.
mhm.
How does that make you feel? I mean, I don't know. I don't want this to feel like a Dr. Phil episode. Man, look, Caitlyn, let loose. Tell us, break down the barriers. You know what I mean? Because I know that you're holding a lot back.
Just a little.
Yeah,
Just a wee bit.
this is your open range right now for you to just kind of how do I normally say it? Rip me a new one if you got to. Yeah.
Yeah. What was the question though?
How did, like, whenever I went to prison, how did you view that? How did that affect you there?
Well, it like a lot of my memories of you were from when I was older instead of when I was like young, and when a lot of the fun stuff that we did actually happened. It was more of like, oh, I was like 12 and you came home, and that was one of my like first big memories. And that's really hard to believe for a lot of people because they're like, well, you spent a lot of time with him when you were like little. And I was like, yeah, but like that's not really the things that I remember, because those weren't the things that were really well, I mean, they were important to
But
me,
they didn't become
but
core memories.
they weren't core memories.
Right.
And so like the times that you would come home and I would get like a letter from you during Christmas, those were like the amazing moments, and I was really happy to have those, even though I do wish that like that situation wouldn't have had to happen in the first place. But I at least I got that.
Right.
And so
But it should have been more,
I mean, well, you can't change that now. So I'm just glad to have had those moments when I got them. So, or like the phone. Oh, the phone calls were good times.
You hear 8,000 people behind me screaming about me being on the phone.
Yeah.
Yeah. And I know that, Granny and them did their best to, yeah, choking them back.
I told you.
Hush. But, I know that Granny did her best to keep you busy at all costs, that way you wouldn't have to think about it. And I didn't really ever realize why she kept you so busy. But
She still does.
I know.
But
you know.
like, I feel like that kind of hurt the whole healing process, because the busier I was, the less I could process, and it just made me save it for a later date. So now I'm kind of like still processing everything that happened in my like childhood.
Right.
So, I mean, busy's not always better, but
So
it did help.
how does the fact that, I mean, I don't, this is what my greatest fear is to ever feel like you thought I gave up on you, and I'm glad you never gave up on me, for one. I'm really glad that you never did. Stop. Why do you laugh at this?
Because I laugh at awkward situations.
You're such my
I
child.
laugh at every emotion.
You're such my child.
I am.
Yes.
Oh, they're tears.
Yeah, I'm trying to hide those. Leave me alone, Caitlyn. But yeah, seriously though, how does that affect you, thinking, or that thought process that possibly could have happened? how does it affect you as far as like your trust in people now?
Ooh.
Yeah.
Ooh. Well, okay. It's really hard for me to like trust people and let people into my life now. And when I do find those like really good people, I try to keep them. Because once I tell you something that's happened in my life or in my childhood that like has helped me grow, I don't want to lose you. And so that's why I only trust a certain amount of people that I think are going to be in my life for a very long time.
Right.
I don't think that you're going to be in my life for that long, then you're probably not going to get to know me that well. Like I might joke here and there, but like you're not going to know who like I really am.
Right.
So I just wait
'Cause
for
I know-
this core people that I know are going to be there for a while.
I know in our relationship that it was very tough for us to get to a point to where you understood that I wasn't going anywhere this time. You know, that I wasn't going back to drugs, drinking, and partying and all that kind of stuff. You know, it was a testy situation in the beginning, you know, because you were just like, well, you know, hey, dad, bye, dad, you know.
Yeah.
It was more along the lines of like, all right, it's good to see you, you know,
Mm-hmm.
because you were just, I'm pretty sure, I'm speaking for you, and I kind of need to hear it from you, or, you know, the viewers would love to hear it from you. How did you view those interactions in the beginning of the recovery process?
Like when you would come and
Like when I
see
first
me.
got out of rehab, yeah.
I didn't trust it.
Yeah.
I didn't, because I was like, no, it's too good to be true. It's not gonna be like a whole long time, and I really felt like I was just gonna see you for like just a few weeks, because that's just how my brain was wired at that point. It was like, see him for a small bit of time, then he'll go away, but then he'll come back. So I always knew you were gonna come back. I just didn't know if you were gonna stay every time. And so in the beginning, I was like not very open, and I was not necessarily scared to say anything. I just didn't know what to say
Right.
to you, and I didn't know how to open up to anybody, because at that point I did not talk to anybody about how I felt. Nothing. And I guess, well, that whole issue in school made me very much like a person who would try to like reach out to everybody and like be friendly, and people would call me like an attention seeker, but it was really just me not knowing how to like deal with those emotions of like, oh, my dad just came back, what do I
do with
say?
this?
Yeah.
So do you think that the fact that you possibly could have been attention seeking because you didn't have the attention from your mom and me, or, you know, and then Granny and Pawpaw are having to wrestle with the fact that I'm in and out of jail and
Yeah.
in and out of the house, and, you know, that because, you know, for a while your daddy was homeless, and I know that you struggled with that, Granny struggled with that, and I know, man, that you're seeing all these other kids that are having to that have their parents right there, and here I am living in an abandoned house, you know. And I know that's embarrassing, you know, for you, and I know that hurt. Whew, we digging a little bit, but you know, it's just one of those things, Caitlyn, where, you know, it sucks because I never got the chance to build the bond with you at an early age. You know, we're doing better with it now,
Mm-hmm.
but, you know, that's just one of those things where I wish that I would have made better choices, you know, but now I inevitably get to, yeah, I just bumbled that word all the way up. So now I get to say, hey, look, if you make this choice, that's probably what's going to happen. You know, I can actually guide you down a path to where you won't have to live the same life that I live. And that's one of the things that does scare the crap out of me because, once again, you are my child, and some of that decision making sometimes, man, can get a little hairy, because all it takes is one, and I never want you to face or have to be out of your child's life, or if, when that time comes, please don't make me an early grandpa. Whew. Ciao. But yeah, I don't ever want you to have to, feel like you let your child down. And I feel like I let you down. Because here I am supposed to be hero and, I'm supposed to be an example of what you would look for and a guy or anything else like that. And I left you with nothing, in the beginning stages where those memories are made or those examples are supposed to be, but hopefully now you can take the example that I'm showing you now, that change is possible. I hope you take that to heart, that whatever you go through, there can be a change, so what else would you like to add?
I don't really know. I need bullet points. I should have written stuff down.
You and your list.
I mean,
it helps. It does help. It does help.
It does.
So how does it affect you from a feminine or a female standpoint, that your mom, is or was, and there's.
Yeah.
I'll let you talk about and explain that. You go right ahead.
What am I supposed to talk about?
I mean, just
What
how it makes you feel, because this is basically, we can talk to about this all day, but I'd rather hear the grit that comes from you, and I know this is something new to you. It's not something you haven't done any, of this before, but when we get to talking about the real part of it, we start to break some of the stigma. We start to break some of the ideals of that. My kids, they were too young to really understand what was going on, or because obviously what I chose to do affected you, because we see that. I see it lived out, just like you're talking about some of the hurt, some of the bullying, and some of the absenteeism that I expressed, so that's where I'm trying to dig in and, get you to break the mold, the mold or the wall that you have up, but I understand. See, and this is part of that, is the fact that you still don't know how to break that mold or that wall down, because it's just like,
this happened, and this is the result. And it's not really like a whole detailed thing,
right?
Because a lot of the time, a lot of oh my god, your stumbling has rubbed off on me.
You're welcome.
Anyways, a lot of the time, wait, where was I? I was talking about breaking the wall.
Yeah.
A lot of the time, details aren't really like a major thing that you focus on when stuff like this happens. You just focus on, oh, I feel this in the moment, and then you don't remember every single thing or like every situation that has come up because of a parent struggling with addiction. You just kind of see the whole big picture, and you have like core things that just stick with you.
Right. So what are some of those core things that actually just stuck with you?
Well, we both know the one major one was when, I don't even know what happened. I had to leave the house.
Oh, yeah, when I was outside screaming at the car
Yeah.
in the woods and telling everybody that they were watching the house and screaming about me going to jail.
Didn't you think there were like police in the closet?
Yeah, I sure did.
Yeah, I heard I didn't really see a lot of it. I just heard pretty much over half of the whole situation. But then I was like rushed out of the house to go and do my homework in a parking lot with Sonic.
Yeah, I was told you were going to dance. Yeah.
Yeah, Granny took me to Sonic and I did my homework in a parking lot. So that was a big thing in my
Right.
life. And I still like sometimes my brain wanders and goes back to like those memories. And it's not pleasant. I would definitely not use the word fun
Right.
to describe that, but it happens more than I would like it to. But those things like that, like big things like fighting and like a lot of the negatives stick out a lot. And I guess a lot of parents or like grandparents, like Granny and Papa, they don't really realize that like those are a lot of the memories that I have from my childhood. Like, yeah, I remember like a lot of the good stuff, but there's a lot of bad mixed in, and I don't think they like realize how much that affects me.
Right. So how many like so when we're talking about the negatives, what are some of those key negatives? Just because I feel like our listeners need to understand from the child of an addict how that looks. All those negatives because we don't realize the residual effects that it has.
Yeah.
Just like you were saying. And I think that, with due explanation or duly being explained, we can actually figure out,
Mhm.
how that actually, that way people don't go back.
Yeah.
They don't harm their children even more because it does become a psychological thing, obviously. So, what are some of those negatives?
A lot of like the yelling and fighting, like going back and forth with because like I heard a lot of like you and Paul like fight all the time. And I can just remember sitting in my room just talking to like my stuffed animals, being like, "No, it's okay. It'll be over in like 5 minutes," and like listening to music, trying to like drown it all out. So the fighting is like a big thing that sticks with me, um, just because like it was a lot going on, and it was very loud, and so the whole like going back and forth, cussing, yelling, just screaming at each other just really sticks with. I think it would stick with a lot of kids that would have to go through that.
Right.
Um, the whole being homeless thing, like you having to stay in the shop and like stay in one of the rooms at the house. Because I was always like, well, where is he right now? And they'd be like, oh, he's at the shop, or like, oh, I don't really know.
Yeah.
So it was kind of like a big thing that I would worry about was like, where is he? Because, I mean, I would see you, I just wouldn't know where you would go
Right.
after. So,
Obviously, we know now that I was probably not in the best
yeah,
place.
no.
Yeah. But so, anything else you would like to add?
About just you?
No.
Well,
Consider this like your open mic night.
I know a lot of kids go through just having one parent deal with addiction, and they have the other parent, like the mom, or like, oh, this is my dad, but I had neither of you.
Right.
So I was like, oh, these are my grandparents. Yeah, fun. And I would get a lot of questions about that, and me not having like a mom there, or like have a big like female role model besides my grandma was tough, and it still is like really hard to deal with because I know that she's trying her best, but like at the same time it's really hard because I don't really know her,
Right.
and she doesn't she knows some stuff about me, but like not everything. Same with you. Like we know each other to a certain extent,
Right.
but we don't really know the basics and like the beginnings and like all the core stuff.
So we don't get in depth.
Yeah,
That's what you're
yeah,
saying.
yeah.
Because I know that sometimes when we do have those in-depth conversations, I get to a point and you're like, nope, I'm done. I'm done talking about this. Like,
Yeah.
nah, we're not digging that deep. We're not, kind of like, right now,
Mhm.
a little bit, but it's expected. Like I said, we didn't actually have a chance to bond when you were younger, and we're trying to build that now. But at this point, I understand there's that trust issue. There's that
Mhm.
issue of vulnerability that
Brings up a lot of abandonment issues,
Right.
attachment issues. You get attached to certain people. It's not it's not always healthy either, because you go for the people that remind you of the people that you grew up with.
right,
And I grew up with grandparents that were going through a lot and having to deal with a lot of stuff and being stressed all the time. So like I don't I don't really know like the certain groups of people that I tend to like lean towards. They just remind me of people that like comforted me when I was younger. Like the friends I had in school were just people that were fun to hang out with. Same now. Um but not having both of your parents there was really tough to know who to trust, and tough to know who's a good person to have in your life, and
right,
like who you should hang out with and who you shouldn't, what's good for you, what's bad for you, toxic relationships, all of that stuff comes back during middle school, high school, especially freshman year. Oh, freshman year is tough.
So what I hear is it's like a lot of like blurred lines,
Mhm.
just due to the fact that um, identity was a problem.
Yeah.
You know what I mean? Um, which was a big problem for me as well. Because and it's crazy because I was adopted, and I said I would never ever let my children go through that or never abandon them.
Mhm.
And and in turn I did that. And that's something I have to own. I can only try to make the strides to do better now. You know, um, and I still feel like I fail horribly at that sometimes. Uh, that look kind of said it all. Oh boy. But oh, Caitlyn,
Hmm.
I love you.
I know.
I love how you never say it back either.
Well, that's
Well,
another thing. It's hard to say it back. It's hard to differentiate
right,
like who you're supposed to say it to. Because I tell my friends, oh, I love you so much all the time. But like it's hard for me to say it to people
right,
that are related to me, or in like more than just a friendship type of like relationship thing. You know?
I understand. I understand. Well, recovery fam, that is a that's a daughter story, of dealing with parents and addiction. As you can hear, some of the pain, some of the grief, some of the issues that end up becoming that person due to the fact that we as addicts we choose the craziness and insanity over love and affection, or sheltering our children when we're supposed to. We have a morbid sense of reality that we're choosing drugs over children. But I'm glad that I have the opportunity today to try to right the wrongs. But um, so if this story, if it hits you in your heartstrings, go down, comment, like, click, share. Make sure you're getting involved in your kids' lives. All of those who are recovering, man, reach out to your children. Just give them a bit of hope. That you are trying to do the right thing, the next right thing. And Caitlyn, I hope you understand that your daddy is trying to do the best that he can with what he has. All I can do is just try to keep progressing, and take you along with me this time, huh? How do you feel about that?
Feel great.
So what do you want to
That
tell?
sounded so sarcastic. I really meant it.
So what do you want to tell those the addicts that are out there struggling to either get their kids back or that have so to speak chosen the lifestyle over parenting? Just give them a bit of hope, if you can.
Your kids really they just want to make sure that you're okay and that you are trying to like take care of yourself. And your kids will understand. Like I understood that he was trying to help himself, which is really important when you're going back to like a family. Just make sure that they know you're okay and you're doing your best, because that's really all they want in the end. So
Awesome. All right, recovery fam. I just want to say I love you guys. Caitlyn?
Love you too.
Hey, recovery fam. Thanks for watching another episode of the Unashamed Recovery Podcast. And if today's episode has somehow helped you out, or maybe it's encouraged you to get into recovery, consider subscribing to our channel, like this video. You can even give us a comment.
Yeah. What? What was I supposed to say?
I like it, social media.
Oh, well, I was getting on there and liking it. See?
Guys, you can find us on all social media at Unashamed Recovery